I was a bedchamber maid, trained by the prince for 6 years. Unexpectedly, before the princess consort even entered the manor, I became pregnant. This was considered the gravest taboo in the prince's household. Therefore, I hid the truth about the child, took a small portion of the prince's wealth, and fled to the capital. Little did I know that this was when the wheel of fate began to turn. I was born a country girl, but because of our family's dire situation, I had to sell myself to human traffickers. At that time, my hometown was suffering from a severe drought. Not a single grain of food remained. If I had stayed, my parents and younger brothers might have starved to death. So, I decided to ask my parents to sell me. They gladly accepted the money, carefully tucked it away, and then knelt to kowtow to me 4 times in farewell. After that, the traffickers took me to a prosperous place, which I later learned was Chang'an. On the way, an old housekeeper woman noticed me and eventually brought me into the prince's manor. Though I was quick-handed, I still made many mistakes at first, sometimes killing the flowers in the garden, sometimes breaking dishes in the kitchen. In the end, the old housekeeper pushed me to the laundry yard to wash clothes. But unexpectedly, there I encountered Prince Lujinan. He was widely rumored to be weak and sickly, yet he forcefully pulled me into a side chamber. From that moment, by sheer chance, I became his sole bedchamber maid. Being in this position had its perks. Every month the household tailored new clothes for me and gave me some silver. If Lu Jinan was in a good mood, he even brought me rare trinkets from outside. Those small pieces of silver and little treasures kept me by his side for years. What astonished me was how different he was from the rumors. People said he was frail and ailing, but the muscles on his body could easily take down a bull. If that man was truly weak, then I'd eat my words. After serving in the manor for 5 or 6 years, I had long since learned to read Lu Jinan's moods. A mere frown told me something was wrong. A small movement and I knew what he wanted to say. I thought this peaceful life would last forever until the day I realized I was pregnant. That day, while chewing on a pork knuckle, I caught the smell of fish soup that another maid had cooked for him. The stench made me vomit everything I had just eaten. Alarmed, I went to the old housekeeper who had first brought me in and told her everything. She looked furious, as though scolding me for being reckless, then secretly took me to a physician. To my shock, despite drinking contraceptive soup for 6 years, I was carrying Lu Jinan's child. I did not know whether it was his vigor or my resilience, but the moment I stepped out of the clinic, I resolved to keep the baby. Yet I also knew I could no longer stay in the prince's manor. Before the princess consort officially entered, I could not be allowed to bear his child. If discovered, the child would be aborted immediately. For years, I had drunk contraceptive decoctions, fearing I might never have children again. This time, I would keep the baby at all costs. From the moment I was sold into the prince's manor, I had been utterly alone. Deep in my heart, I yearned for a blood relative of my own. Back at the manor, my mind was in turmoil. In the study, I noticed a small turtle struggling toward the door, as if longing to escape into freedom, but soon it was caught by a eunuch and placed back in its box. Watching it, I lost all appetite. The dishes before me felt tasteless and hard to swallow. At that moment, one of Prince Lu Jinan's close attendants entered and informed me, "Miss Yao, tonight His Highness is dining with the Minister of Rights. He won't return to the manor. He instructed that you should rest early and not wait for him." I nodded and quietly handed the stewardess a few gold coins taken from my little box. My heart ached as I parted with them, but I knew I had to save for my future plans. Lost in thought, I remembered once telling Lu Jinan about a recurring dream. I would see a child holding my hand, lovingly calling me mother. He had only smiled faintly and said dreams were always opposite to reality, warning me to never forget my place. I stared into the bronze mirror, snow-white skin, delicate features, long black hair cascading to my waist like silk. But no matter how beautiful I was, in his eyes, I was merely a plaything. The day he tired of me, a few taels of silver would be enough to dismiss me. So I began to calmly plan my escape. Over the years, he had given me jewelry, silver, and banknotes. Gathered together, These could support both me and my child for a long time. To avoid being tracked, I would need to flee to a remote, desolate place. Quietly, I pawned all the jade ornaments he had gifted me. In just a few days, the banknotes in my hand multiplied. His gifts, it seemed, were worth far more than I had imagined. Everything was prepared. I only needed the right chance. Soon, the Empress Dowager's birthday would arrive. As a favored prince, Lu Jinan would certainly go to the palace to offer his congratulations. The date coincided with the Kixi festival, when most of the servants would be outside celebrating. Guard numbers would be low. This would be the perfect opportunity. On the night of Kixi, I boarded the carriage I had secretly arranged and left the place I had lived in for 6 years. Back in my second year as his bedchamber maid, Lu Jinan had already returned my contract of servitude, saying, "A woman of mine has no need to be a slave." Before leaving, I wrote him a farewell letter. I explained that I knew he would soon marry the daughter of the Minister of Rights. Though I had always been aware of my lowly status, I feared that once he took a proper wife, my future would only end in tragedy. As the carriage rattled away from Chang'an, a single tear rolled down my cheek. By the end of the 9th month, winter had already descended upon Beijing. Bitter winds cut to the bone. After 2 months of traveling, I finally arrived, my belly now clearly showing. To everyone else, I posed as a wealthy widow whose husband had died in the chaos of war, leaving me to raise a child alone. At once, I purchased a mountain estate and hired guards for protection. I feared bandits might one day come to raid us. I also recruited several maids to handle chores and cooks to prepare meals, for I had always loved listening to stories and indulging in fine food. I knew only money could buy peace, so I began investing, buying rice shops and small businesses in Beijing. Slowly, my ventures stabilized, enough to ensure a comfortable life for me and my unborn child. The people in this region were honest and straightforward, and the summers here were cool, perfect for raising a child. Even if life was not luxurious, I did not mind. If possible, I wished to plant roots here, so that when my life ended, I could rest in peace on some quiet mountain. In the 8th month of that year, I gave birth. The labor was so painful I thought I might die. Suddenly, Zhao Deng, the boy I had taken in, brought forth a 1,000-year-old ginseng root. With its slices, my life was saved. When the child was placed in the cradle, Zhao Deng peered at the wrinkled, red-faced infant and exclaimed, "This little brat is so ugly he looks nothing like you." Too weak to respond, I only let out a faint breath. Zhao Deng glared at the boy who mocked my child. "If you think he's ugly, then stop staring. Either watch him properly or get lost." Indeed, Zhao Deng was pitiful too. Shortly after we arrived in Beijing, he had been exiled here. His body had been frail and near death. I took him in, cared for him, and later asked a martial master, Old Biao, to train him. Miraculously, he recovered and grew strong. Only then did I learn from Old Biao that Zhao Deng had once been a eunuch who escaped from the palace. Though surprised, I still allowed him to stay by my side. With his help, I even found a reliable wet nurse. Thanks to her, my child grew healthier and stronger by the day. One afternoon, Zhao Deng asked, "This boy can't be called Little Treasure forever, right? He needs a proper name." For days I pondered. Finally, I named him Lin Changqing, hoping he would grow strong and enduring, like pine and cypress trees. Looking at my son sleeping soundly in the cradle, my eyes welled with tears. For the first time in my life, I was no longer alone. I had a flesh and blood family member of my own. Life finally felt meaningful. When Lin Changqing reached school age, I grew worried. Though I could manage accounts and basic household records, I lacked knowledge of the classics and literature. Zhao Deng could only teach him martial arts. For academics, we needed a true scholar. I heard of a great Confucian scholar in Beijing who had once taught even princes and noble sons, including Lu Jinan himself. This man now lived in exile, teaching at the White Horse Academy in a nearby town. Determined, I used all my connections and wealth to get Changqing admitted. Soon after, as Changqing began his studies, troubling news reached me. The emperor collapsed in court, too frail to govern. Factional struggles for the throne grew fierce. Among the battling princes, Lu Jinan rose victorious, crushing rivals and securing the position of crown prince. Preparations for his investiture began immediately. Naturally, the great scholar, once his tutor, was summoned to the capital to attend. My heart trembled as I gazed at the portraits and documents arriving from Chang'an. My son's features resembled his father far too much. As he grew older, anyone could see it. The scholar too deliberated, then decided to bring some of his finest students back to the capital with him. Lin Changqing, being one of his brightest pupils, was chosen. My heart was heavy, yet I could not refuse. I packed everything my son might need for the journey. Before he left, I warned him, Changqing, when you reach Chang'an, do not wander. Every inch of that city is filled with danger. You must never offend the people there. He nodded obediently. Mother, don't worry. Master already told us. Chang'an is not like Beijing. Customs there are strict and solemn, not as carefree as here. He reminded us to behave, lest we disgrace him. Though reluctant, I let him go. I knew that only by following the great scholar could my son secure a brighter future. Yet deep inside, I feared one thing above all, that Lu Jinan would recognize him. When the time came, I reluctantly let Lin Changqing leave for Chang'an with the scholar and his students. To be safe, I hired bodyguards to accompany him. Zhao Deng, now skilled in martial arts, went too. But my heart never rested. I kept thinking about Chang'an, the bustling city, filled with power struggles. I feared that if Lu Jinan saw my son, disaster would follow. After all, Changqing's face was too much like his father's. Sure enough, it wasn't long before rumors spread. Lu Jinan, now crown prince, had noticed my son. On a certain day, he looked at Changqing intently, as though seeing a reflection of his younger self. Suspicion grew. Later, I learned that he had secretly performed a blood recognition ritual, dropping his blood into water together with Changqing's. To his shock, the two merged instantly. From that moment, there was no denying it. He knew Changqing was his son. When I heard, my heart turned cold. All these years, I had lived in hiding to protect my child. Now, in one moment, everything was undone. Not long after, Lu Jinan himself came to my residence with his imperial guards. He had grown thinner, his face lined with weariness, but his aura was sharper than ever. Standing at my door, he looked at me with eyes like blades. Lin Zhao Dao, he said, calling me by name, you dared to steal away my child for all these years. Do you know how long I have searched for you? I trembled, unable to answer. He stepped closer, voice low and dangerous. I overturned all of Jiangsu looking for you, and yet you hid here in Beijing, raising my son in secret. Tell me, what crime do you think you deserve? Anger flared in me despite my fear. What crime? If I had stayed, would either of us still be alive today? Before your princess consort even entered, if the truth had been known, I would have been executed, and the child destroyed. I left to save him and myself. Lu Jinan's face darkened. He seized my wrist, his grip like iron. Pain shot through me, but I still met his eyes. Let go! I shouted. You hurt me. For a moment, sorrow flickered in his gaze. He loosened his grip and rubbed the swollen mark he had left, voice softening. Come back with me. I will give you and our son the best life. I shoved him away, cold and resolute. Back to what? To your eastern palace filled with dangers? Back to being your maid, your concubine? No, Lu Jinan. Whatever we once had was only physical. You never truly saw me as a person, only as a toy. The moment I left, everything between us ended. His expression twisted with pain. Elm Zhao Dao, do you know what you've done? You robbed me of my son's childhood. I lost years I can never recover. Do you think I will forgive that? Tears stung my eyes, but I held firm. You may be crown prince, but nothing has changed. Our stations are worlds apart. And are you not already betrothed to the minister's daughter? Tell me, if I had borne your child before she entered the palace, would I still be alive today? For the first time, I saw Lu Jinan falter. His lips trembled. In a voice filled with regret, he whispered, I am sorry. I never thought. I never knew. But it was too late. From that day, Lu Jinan refused to let go. Though he was crown prince, he lingered in Beijing, hovering around us. Every day, he found excuses to visit, sometimes bringing gifts, sometimes simply sitting with Changqing as though trying to make up for lost years. To my son, he was no longer just elder brother from the academy. Gradually, he began to call him father. Seeing Changqing's eyes sparkle with joy, my heart ached. I wanted my son to be happy, yet I feared what it would mean if we returned to the Eastern Palace. One morning, while I was tending my noodle shop, news came that chilled me to the bone. Changqing had gone missing. I rushed into the streets, searching desperately. My shoes fell off, but I did not stop. At last, I found Lu Jinan at the city gate, his face pale, his body covered with dust and bruises. Guards reported that they had recovered my son from the hands of a scarred old man, a veteran bodyguard mistaken for a kidnapper. When I saw Changqing safe, I burst into tears, clutching him so tightly he could hardly breathe. "Never again," I whispered. "Never leave my side again." Later that night, I confronted Lu Jinan. "You let this happen. If anything had happened to my son, I would never forgive you." In my fury, I slapped him hard across the face. He only lowered his head, voice hoarse. "You're right. I failed. But I will not leave. Not you. Not him. From now on, I will protect you both." In the days that followed, he continued to stay near us. Sometimes when I looked at him, I saw not the calculating crown prince but the same man I had once known, stubborn, intense, yet strangely sincere. And sometimes, I felt my heart waver. One morning, Changqing burst into my room, eyes bright. "Mother, I have a father now. I am no longer the boy without a father." He hugged Lu Jinan tightly, laughter ringing through the house. I stood frozen, torn between fear and longing. The man beside my son was both his father and the ruler-to-be of the empire. A man who once hurt me, yet now seemed to want nothing more than to keep us close. Would returning with him mean ruin or salvation? As I watched Lu Jinan slip the wooden prayer beads I had crafted for him years ago onto his wrist, my heart clenched. Once, he had dismissed them as worthless. Now, he wore them as though they were priceless. Perhaps he truly remembered. Perhaps he truly regretted. But for me, there was no simple answer. For now, I chose only one thing: to protect my son. Whatever the future held, whether reunion or farewell, my life, my love, and my courage would belong to him.